XRP has finally hit its bottom and should be reversing higher in the next couple days. In this video, I want to break down a couple charts that you absolutely need to be paying attention to because it's going to paint a picture for what's going to happen as we go through these next couple weeks. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. Also, if you're in a good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange uphold down in the description of this video. With that said, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. So let's jump right into the price charts and take a look at what XRP is doing right now because it's at a very critical point that I think every person needs to be paying attention to. So we're going to start off and take a look at the one-day chart for XRP, and what we can see is that right now XRP is essentially bouncing right off this critical support line. Now, this has been the support line that has held XRP up ever since it broke into the $2 range. So it's very good to see a slight indication right here that there seems to be some strong support. Now, if we take a look at this on a more zoomed in time frame, because that's really going to paint the story for what XRP just did that was so important, we can see that XRP just recently actually broke out of the downtrend it's been stuck in. So XRP over the past couple days has been collapsing essentially under this descending resistance and has been unable to break out of it and essentially reverse momentum. Well, what we're seeing right now is XRP actually was able to do that, reversed, and is now trying to put in a new trend back to the upward direction. Now, this is going to be very critical for XRP to hold because as we just talked about, if we're taking a look at the longer term time frame, we can see that XRP is really at its last support region and absolutely needs to hold right here. So it's no coincidence to me that XRP is bouncing right here. We're seeing buying volume coming in at this region, but at the moment, we're still in this stage where it absolutely needs to do something more convincing to make sure that we don't continue to cascade downward. Now, what that looks like is likely something like this, where we get, when Monday opens, essentially a strong vertical candle to the upside, bringing us back somewhere close to 235, 240. That would essentially be enough momentum to say, you know what, we saw the liquidation candle and it's time to start building up more momentum in this kind of middle ground before we can try to ascend back to the upside. You can see we saw a very similar thing happen back here, where it essentially looked like XRP was going to come crashing all the way back down. It found this support at about the $2 region before it was able to reverse momentum and start moving back to the upside. I think we're probably looking at a very similar scenario right here. We're going to take a look at a couple other charts to really paint that picture and show you why I think we're probably pretty close to that long-term bottom where we stand right now. But this is just the first look at the long-term macro chart. We're at a very, very strong support region right now. We've seen XRP react here before. If we take a look at the shorter time frames, we can see that the descending pattern XRP has been stuck in has essentially been broken, which are all really good early indicators that the worst is probably behind us. Now, if we take a look at a very, very interesting chart, we can take a look at this MACD chart that recently was just brought to my attention. Now, this is a very important chart because we can see that XRP has only been on a weekly low at this level on the MACD in 2018 when we had that historic bear market, and in 2025 when Trump first launched tariffs and we saw huge liquidations across the entire cryptocurrency market. So what this chart is essentially showing us is that very few times in XRP's entire history have we ever seen XRP as oversold as it is right now. Now, this just so happens to be happening at the same exact time XRP, as we just talked about, is hitting this extremely powerful support region at about $1.85 to $1.90. So XRP is at a very, very strong long-term support. And we just so happen to be sitting in the most oversold position in XRP's history. Now, while these two things together don't paint the entire picture for us, it lets us know that essentially, historically, this would be a time that typically indicates a very long-term bottom for XRP. Essentially, max fear, max selling, everyone is scared to jump back into the market. Now, you might think that sounds terrible, that sounds scary, but historically, that is one of the best indicators that things are going to start moving up and to the right very, very soon. Whenever the market is over panicked, oversold, we're coming down to these long-term supports, everyone starts thinking the bear market's in, we're crashing through, this is all over, pack up your bags. But guys, the vast majority of the time when the market is still fundamentally bullish, it's really just a historic buying opportunity. Now, one of the reasons why I think it's so obvious that we're actually at a very strong period in XRP's price chart, and we're actually in a much safer region than a lot of people are really giving us credit for, is because of this longer term monthly price chart. What we can see is this thing is still holding up perfectly. Yes, we have had some short-term volatility in this accumulation region at the $2 mark. But guys, if you really zoom out, you can see that really there's no cause for concern. XRP is really just accumulating here at the $2 region, and in my opinion, before it ultimately breaks out to these higher levels. We can see that this is really not uncommon for XRP, and it did the same exact thing back in 2014 to 2017, where it essentially paused real quick after it got back to these previous highs before breaking out to brand new all-time highs. And what we can see is on this monthly chart, XRP is simply consolidating right on top of these previous all-time highs. I always like to zoom out and take a look at these monthly charts sometimes, because so many people get so lost in the noise of what the daily chart is doing, chopping around, going up and down. But I look at a lot of that almost as like a noise graph. If you've ever seen a noise graph before, what you see is if you have no volume in a room, right? You just turn on a microphone, you see a lot of background noise, a lot of static noise, and it looks like those are really huge movements. But as soon as you talk, as soon as you make an actual noise, suddenly the entire price chart adjusts, or the entire noise chart adjusts, and that background noise you can't even see anymore. A lot of the times I look at the daily charts as that background noise, just that daily trading, that volatile up and down, where it goes up 10%, comes down 10%, goes up 5%, goes down 5%, and it just seems like you're not making any progress, or you're just constantly going through these swings where it feels like you're not going anywhere. But if you zoom out and look at these longer term time frames, you can see that this thing looks absolutely pristine. And even though we're in a red candle right now, it's still on top of these very strong support regions. And if we reverse direction and start putting in green candle, this chart is going to look outstandingly bullish, because we just held out at a very, very, very serious test of essentially the support region that's been holding us up. So even though in the moment, yes, it's not fun to watch it retest these supports, if it does hold, I mean, that is an incredible indicator for what comes next. Now, all of this stuff, looking at it in a vacuum, isn't really going to tell you a whole lot. But the thing you need to understand is that the market has really never looked better in terms of how it's overall positioned. One, we have the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates. They are stopping quantitative tightening and moving to quantitative easing. These are both macroeconomic policies that are going to be very significant in bringing more liquidity into the market. It's also going to make all the big investment firms switch from a risk-off attitude to a risk-on attitude, which is very important for cryptocurrencies. We're also heading into midterms, so we're likely going to see a lot of different efforts from both political parties to essentially bolster the market and try to make people feel good about themselves to try to garner votes. And the most important thing, and the thing that I think everyone knows, but I'll just touch on, is the fact that XRP has never really been in a stronger point in its history in terms of narrative. Not only do you have financial institutions, the exact institutions that Ripple has been marketing to from the start, getting into cryptocurrency and finally accepting it for the first time, but you have this totally unexpected narrative on an importance of being US-centric and a US-centric technology. These are all things alongside regulatory clarity that are going to be the huge, huge catalyst for the market, and things that we have never seen before in history. From a fundamental perspective, XRP has never been in a stronger place in its life. And I believe understanding that and really conceptualizing the fact that is going to be very important for price appreciation, it's so important to keep that in the back of your mind when you're looking at these price charts. If we just saw that all these XRP ETFs didn't get approved and this administration was going to be just as bad as the last administration, look, I could make a very valid argument that XRP could be trading back below $1, back below 50 cents. But with the strength we are seeing on the market on the fundamental side, it's just so improbable that we would see XRP revert back to these levels when XRP was in a fundamentally worse situation before. For the first time ever, the floodgates have really been opened. And if we're taking a look at the technical indicators, they are telling us we're probably at a bottom here. That in itself isn't going to tell us a whole lot. But when you pair that along with these long-term fundamentals that are screaming things have never been so positive, guys, it helps me paint the picture that I believe the bottom is likely in, or we are extremely close to it. Maybe we have one more red candle wick down. But guys, for the vast majority of really what we've seen, I think the worst is behind us, and we're likely looking to start putting in a pretty strong reversal as soon as markets open back up Monday. So let's hope XRP continues to hold this $2 mark and we can see XRP really gain some momentum to the upside, because that's going to be very important confirmation that the worst is behind us and we're likely going to close out the year moving back in an upward direction and hopefully even potentially breaking out to new all-time new highs. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you guys enjoyed this update, and for now, Mickle out.